Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second day of our International Scientific Conference, Public Health, Current Achievements and New Challenges. In today's session, named International Experiences in Teaching Public Health and Competencies of Public Health Graduates, we have excellent group of panelists whom I will present soon. The goal of this session, please show the first slide. The goal of this session is to present, discuss and draw conclusions on the differentiated international experiences related to teaching of public health, as well as a variety of competencies of public health graduates which are suitable for the contemporary job market. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, I am very happy that we have gathered a very differentiated, excellent group of panelists representing countries like the United States of America, Canada, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, France, Germany, Poland, and Taiwan. Some of them working professionally liaised with one country, some of them with more than one country. Before I introduce the first panelist, Laura Magana, I encourage all participants, all viewers and listeners to ask questions and post them on chat, questions, comments, and post them on chat. As much as it is possible, we will try to address them either during the discussion or just after it. Dr. Laura Magana is the president and the chief executive officer of the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health, ASPPH, in Washington, based in Washington, DC. Previously, Laura was the Dean of the School of Public Health in Mexico. She has over 35 years experience leading advancements in higher education, and her diverse portfolio features 90 academic publications and educational technological developments in the area of education and public health. Laura also represents the Global Network for Academic Public Health, which is an alliance of 7 regional associations of academic public health in various regions of our planet. Among other issues, in her lecture, Laura will describe the situation in the USA, including the American experiences related to teaching public health on the academic level, and will set a scene for a discussion involving other members, panelists whom I will introduce after Laura's lecture. Laura, the floor, camera, and microphone are yours.
Thank you so much. Let me just put out my screen here. 1 minute. Okay. Thank you so much and good morning. Congratulations to the School of Public Health in Krakow in their 30th anniversary. I want to thank Thomas and the organizing committee for inviting me to participate in this important panel. Today, I would like to share some information about public health education in the United States, and also share with you some thoughts on the public health education of the future that we all must work together. And I'm looking forward to really an engaging conversation after all the panelists present their initial thoughts. Oh, what happened here? Let me make sure I can.
Laura, Laura, maybe please go to the first one, to the first slide.
Okay, let me just. Why here? Let me just go this.
Yes, I think it's this one.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. Okay, that's great. All right, so the association ASPPH, which is the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health, we are representing 135 schools and programs which are accredited in the United States by the Council on Education of Public Health. Most of our members are here in the United States, but we also have representation in Granada, Hong Kong, Lebanon, Mexico, and Taiwan. We represent around 10,000 faculty and more than 72 students, and every year, like more than 25,000 graduates that our schools are graduating. I want to show you the growth of the public health education in the United States. These are the number of accredited institutions in the United States, and you can see here all the growth. And mostly that growth has been in the last 20 years. From all the schools and programs which are accredited, which are 215 right now, 135 belong to or are engaged with our association. First, I will share some data about our members' faculty. So as you can see here, from the total number of 10,382 faculty members from our schools, the majority are professors, meaning that they have a tenure track, but followed by associate professors and assistant professors. The vast majority of our faculty are white. We are working very hard in changing this situation. You know that right here in the United States, and you're gonna see through all my presentation, we have some challenges in terms of gender and in terms of race, not just for the population in general, not just for the students, but starting with the faculty. So we are very central in front of these situations because first of all, we need to be aware and we need to do something about it and just eliminate the barriers that really prevent our female faculty to become, in the first place, faculty. There are slightly more faculty than female, but only 25% of the women are really full professors, meaning like the tenure track. So gender, again, it's really an issue in our institutions. In terms of the departments that we have more faculty, most of our faculty, not for a surprise, are concentrated on the traditional STEAM disciplines. So that's another challenge in our institutions right now. We really want to increase the number of tenure track in the other disciplines that maybe they are not traditional. They are more like in health disparities, informatics, biomedical, nutrition, in the areas that we need more to have more faculty there. Also, not surprisingly, male faculty are disproportionately represented more in the environmental science, biostatistics, biomedical science, and health informatics. In terms of our applicants, you can see that applications for graduate school was actually, before the pandemic, very stable, more like in a plateau. These are the number of applicants we receive every year and SOFAS, which is our centralized application system. We coordinate that system in ASPPH, so we have all this data. But not surprisingly, the pandemic has put a spotlight on public health, which has led to an amazing increase an interest in studying public health. So this growth is spiking with a 40% average increase in number of applications to 2021 graduate level degree programs compared to March 2020, which was already at 23% increase. Of course, that additionally, other factors from the pandemic are also contributing to this increase. Changes to the higher education application process, course delivery, as well as the economic impact on unemployment. In terms of international schools, students and applications, we have around 20% of our applications are from international students. And as you can see here, there are the top 5 countries from which we receive international applications. And as you can see, China is by far the highest. In terms of our students, master students continue to be the largest segment of the ASPPH student population when looking at data reported from our members. However, when looking at the cohort of members who reported the data, the number of students pursuing bachelor's degree has increased more rapidly as graduate student counts began to level off. Of course, in 2020, the pandemic did spur on an increase in admissions to master's degrees. So as seen in the National Center for Education and Statistics data, undergraduate degree conferrals in public health overtook masters in 2020. So we expect the same to occur with the ASPPH student population. So I think that in our discussion, I would like to know more or to learn more about what's going on in the bachelor's degree in Europe, in Poland, because here we have been an exponential increase in the interest to study in the bachelor's degree. Right now, actually, the public health bachelor's degree is the most popular to study if you are in bachelor's degree. In terms of, we continue talking about the international students. While the majority of the students are women in our schools, a larger proportion of international students are men compared to the U.S. students population. So we receive more applications or more students that are men than female in terms of our own international students. Also, international students, the key takeaway here is that international students enroll in greater number in the STEAM public health disciplines like biostatistics, environmental science, and health informatics. Those are the areas where they seek graduate education here in the United States. As you can see here, and not surprisingly, most of the international students come actually for their doctoral degrees, which is higher than its own population here in the United States. And the population, for example, here in the United States, 45% of the students are in bachelor's degree as compared to the doctoral. But the international, the foreign students come basically for their doctoral, for their master, a very few really for the bachelor degree. In terms of graduates, now, we're pretty stable. If we count just the graduate degree, these are the numbers that we graduate every year. Every year, this number goes to the workforce. If we add a bachelor's degree, of course, that increases a lot, the number. Our numbers have graduated like yearly, like over the past 5 years. If we think about where they go, the top employers for our graduates, over the past 5 years, definitely healthcare has been the top overall employers for our graduates, but we are seeing a lot of diversity now. Academic institutions is number 2, the government is number 3, for-profit organization that, as you can see in the next slide, it's growing really increasingly rapidly. Of course, a non-profit organization, and we're seeing right now more sectors like the non-traditional sectors just hiring our students. If you can see here, the top employers differ by degree level, which I mean is not surprising either. Academia being the top employer for our doctoral students, healthcare is a top employer for the master's level, and for-profit organizations is the top for bachelor's level. So there's a lot of like technology firms that are actually wanting, or for example, the media, especially right now with COVID, a lot of media is requiring graduates from bachelor's degree to actually help in the issues, in the public health issues, in the news, in several other, or to develop different apps for that. And finally, if we look at the US public health workforce, it's shocking that only 14% of the public health US workforce that is really directly working on the field of public health has actually a degree in public health. So we have a lot of work to do here, and I'm seeing here my dear friend Cassia. She studies a lot the workforce area, and we have a lot of work to do in the workforce because they are not really trained to be, in the positions that they are, and especially now with the changing competencies. But this is a dramatic situation right here in the States, and as you know, right now, with the Biden administration has given a lot of funds in order to support the infrastructure, and they are hiring thousands of people as a workforce, but one of our main concerns is that these people are not trained for the workplace that they are asking or they are performing to do. So actually the increase in the number of really lifelong learning environments, it's going to increase rapidly. The other situation that is happening right here, and I would love to hear what's going on with you, is that in addition to that, nearly half of the current public health workforce is planning to leave in the next 5 years. Yes, for retirement, but not just for retirement. The other phenomenon that we're seeing right here is that burnout, fatigue, stress, discouragement are other reasons. So we are really in a crisis right here because the people that are in the workforce, they are not trained, and now 44% of them are going to actually leave their positions very, very, very soon. So moving into the workforce skills. So the results of our MBPHE, which is our organization that certifies the skills of the workforce, they did a job task analysis in 2014, and by the way, they're planning to do very, very soon the next one. And actually, we're very excited because I think there's some interest in other parts of the world, including Europe, to really do together a collaborative effort in trying to identify what are the most important domains for the public health workforce, like in the different fields. And I'll note that the top domain in each category is not really one of the traditional technical domains that many of our institutions are really designed and train our graduates. From here, we're starting to see a pattern that the soft skills, the human skills, the cross-cutting skills are actually the skills needed in the workforce. This summer, very recently, like a month ago, McKinsey reinforced this concept. And in a study and a report that they just released very recently, they were speaking about the need for more cross-cutting skills for all fields. They were not thinking, of course, only about public health, but they were talking about the foundational skills that all the citizens, they need to have in order to thrive in the future of work. And look at the competencies. And they're talking about the cognitive, the interprofessional, the interpersonal, the self-leadership, the digital ones. And when we look at the research that has come out of the pandemic, you can see here that my colleague and friend and fellow speaker, Kasia Kazanovska, has found that these competencies are needed to strengthen preparedness for the next time. And look at the competencies, look at the domains. Again, we're not looking at the traditional ones. We're looking at empathy, resiliency, and emergency risk communication. We also saw a report this summer from our health departments here in the United States. And again, the health departments are asking for graduates that have skills or competencies in people skills, communication skills, technology competence. So we're looking at more and more of the urgent need to transform our curriculums, because the competencies that are needed in the workforce are beyond the traditional technical competence. So let's start talking a little bit about the future of public health education in these very last minutes. ASPPH, because of all that need to really transform our education, our curriculums, launched the Frame the Future 2030 initiative to start our conversations about the future of education and set a transformative vision for academic public health that could serve as blueprint for all of us going forward. So we are seizing the moment of increased interest in public health, education, and practice, and we are ensuring that global perspectives are reflected in this work. One of the considerations for this work will be definitely the hybrid models. Technology is here to stay. So we need to take advantage of the power of technology and the power of face-to-face distributed learning. So one of the things that the panel that's looking into this is like, yes, we want to build the future better, and that future will be just in education to have more, to take advantage of more of the technology in order to just leave the technology to really improve the technical competencies that everybody has, and that we can do that perfectly in the computers, And of course, we know that we need the social interactions and we want to go, in presence, but that has to be changed, has to be just to develop the social competencies, the cognitive competencies that the workforce really is needing. So we're looking into really transforming and going from knowledge to competencies. So as we saw from the research above, we need to emphasize competencies and mostly the human competencies that will really prepare our students and graduates for the future. So we're thinking about that the curriculum should look more like having more emphasis in the cognitive and metacognitive competencies, the social and emotional competencies, and of course the technical and specialized also competencies. But when we talk about the cognitive and metacognitive, we're talking about creativity, autonomy, strategic and critical thinking, agile, self-regulation. When we're talking about social and emotional, we're talking about empathy, collaboration, resilience, respect, appreciation, etc. And of course, in the technical, we're looking at to include more the use of information and big data in our curriculum. Of course, technology, decision making is just among the top. So we must equip students for the world that is being built. It doesn't matter that they're going to change 11 times their jobs, because that's what the research is saying. And maybe some of the jobs that our graduates are going to have, they have not even been invented yet. So that's why we need to really equip our graduates with this competence. So the workforce, we need the workforce who think and act with creativity and sensitivity to develop the new ways of living and the new social models. The other two things that we are thinking is that our curriculums must really be founded by the social problems of our society and planetary problems that our society is facing. So, for example, we need a public health workforce that thinks, that addresses the social issues. That should be the focus of our curriculum. But also, as climate change continues to play an essential role in the overall population health, planetary health should also be front and center of our curriculums. Of course, that we must all work together toward the future of academic public health. ASPPH is proud to be part of the global network for academic public health, an alliance of 7 regional associations focused on enhancing academic public health worldwide through mutual learning and collaborations between academic public health institutions globally in order to improve and protect the health of people and the planet. We are very happy that your institution, your university, is an awardee of our first cohort of TIPH Global Grantees, aiming to raise awareness about public health and enhance the visibility and understanding of public health issues in Poland. Thanks again for inviting me to this celebration. I'm looking forward for the discussion. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Laura. It was a great presentation, very informative. I think we as the listeners got a lot of information about current state of public health in the United States. There are so many questions I would like to ask, but we need to go to next part of the session, and I'm sure that many of these issues will arise also during the discussion. But generally, I think it looks like you brought very good news for public health graduates, at least in the American environment. As I mentioned, I'm also very happy that we are in TIPH Action, firstly European edition, now the global edition of This is Public Health. Let me introduce our other panelists who are experienced public health and healthcare system professionals and researchers. John Duncan Middleton is a professor and president of the Association of Schools of Public Health in the European region, ASFER, and immediate past president of the UK Faculty of Public Health. He leads ASFER's strategic development and chairs the ASFER COVID-19 task force. John is an honorary fellow of the Faculty of Public Health. He holds fellowship of the Royal College of Physicians of London. He was director of public health for Sunderland in the West Midlands of England for 27 years. His professional interests are in community safety, community development, climate breakdown, and environmental protection. In his another life, as he said to me, he's a blues harmonica player with Dr. Harp's Medicine Band, which has recorded albums on Apple Music and Spotify. I will not tell you who are the other panelists in their another lives, but they are free to tell this during our discussion if they want, of course. Next panelist is Olivier Grimaud, Professor Olivier Grimaud, who's a French medical doctor who specialized in public health in the UK. He's been working at the French School of Public Health for at least 18 years and currently heads the quantitative methods in public health department. His research focuses on cerebrovascular epidemiology and health services research, and Olivier has been involved in the Europub Health program from its early stages. He's the Europub Health Plus Consortium academic coordinator, and we work here in Kraków with Olivier Grimaud on almost every day basis. Katarzyna Czabanowska is a professor of public health leadership and workforce development at the International Health Department of the Maastricht University in the Netherlands, and a visiting professor at our institute, Department of Health Policy Management. She's an honorary member of the UK Faculty of Public Health, the past president of the ASFER, Association of Schools of Public Health in the European region, and academic board member of the Studio Europa at Maastricht University. She serves also as a WHO expert in the area of public health leadership, public health workforce development and planning and public health systems. Our next panelist, Professor Aldona Frączkiewicz-Wronka, is the head of the Department of Public Management and Social Sciences at the University of Economics in Katowice. And for many years, she worked and held managerial positions at other academic organizations in Poland, including those in Łódź, Warsaw and Sosnowiec. For many years, Aldona has been researching and searching for instruments to increase effectiveness of health service delivery by public organizations, preparing analysis of strategic interventions and strategies for building relations with stakeholders in the healthcare sector. And her research builds on management science, especially methods and instruments of management in organizations, methods and techniques of strategic management, social policy science, and health sciences. Aldona also cooperates with organizations dealing with business consulting for public and social organization and performs evaluations of European funds spending within the cohesion policy. Among us are also our alumni, who are young public health professionals, both of whom have international experience in public health studying, learning, who graduated from the Europub Health program as the excellent students and alumni, and who are doing their second year of studies as well, their Master of Public Health thesis at the Institute of Public Health in Krakow. Tara Chen is a young Canadian Taiwanese descent public health professional working to strengthen health systems with a vision that everything and everywhere is public health. She holds a Bachelor of Health Sciences from Western University and is a proud graduate of the Europub Health program with Jagiellonian University. She's passionate about health systems, sustainable development goals, environmental health, climate change, as well as aging populations and health literacy. Silvia Rote is a young German and a graduate of the Europub Health Plus program with the Jagiellonian University in years 2017-18. She's an economist who worked as a policy analyst evaluating European Union proposals in the healthcare field. She's now working as a consultant at the Institute for Healthcare Business GmbH, a consultancy which is specializing in the hospital sector. And in addition, she has developed a great interest in prevention issues. So thank you, panelists, for appearing together with us. And now I will go to my first question, which I would like to pose to John. John, what are, according to you, the major problems related to teaching public health in the region of ASFER's activity, which is Euro-Asian region in general? What is a status quo? What is a condition of academic public health there? John, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Certainly, much of what Laura was describing for the US, I think, rings true for European schools as well. I don't think we've got quite the level of data that Laura was able to describe for for the careers and for the opportunities of American graduates, but we are working on that, and I'm sure Kasia will say more about that. Schools have faced a number of challenges, obviously, over the pandemic. In the surveys that we've done of how schools have been operating, the form of teaching is obviously the biggest concern, and programs have moved rapidly to being online and virtual, and but that's created technical challenges for all our lecturers, and has been extremely time consuming for everybody. But again, as Laura said, it's had advantages and spin-offs that we should seek to maintain into the future. Now we see schools returning to classroom teaching, but nevertheless there are concerns both for COVID transmission and for the obvious safety and comfort of our students, and other classroom adaptations like ventilation, like spacing and so on, still need to be considered. There have been issues around certainty in planning. You know, when do schools go back to the full classroom experience? Issues of the educational infrastructure and prevention measures, and some concerns as professionals really about the evidence base on which decisions are being taken about social distancing and non-pharmaceutical measures, and there have been tensions with the overall administration of universities relative to what the schools of public health tell them they should be doing. So it has been a very mixed picture. I know most European countries are now returning to much more in-person teaching. I think on the bigger front, the issues, our young professionals obviously are very concerned about their future. There's been a lot of extra work for young graduates, but that's been temporary. It's not been part of a career structure in their respective countries. And, you know, something that ASPRA would like to see very much more strongly in more countries is a degree of certainty, the opportunity for a career and a direction for our young professionals, and a context of professionalisation, national recognition for what they do, and this is something which ASPRA is moving forward strongly. We're working with WHO to bring forward the roadmap on professionalisation, and again, Kasia, I'm sure, will say more about that. So it is a period of huge uncertainty, that's for sure. But there's never been a better time to be in public health, never more recognition of what people in public health do, and that doesn't mean it's an easy task. It will be challenging, it is challenging, but certainly, you know, it is the best job in the world, and I commend it to everybody who's listening who may not yet be convinced. Is that all right?
Thank you very much, John. Very important message, I think, which you brought, or messages. One of them, I think, one of the most important, as you said, there has not been a better time for public health, and I hope that our students have heard this and will remember this. Thank you very much, John. Now let's move from Euro-Asian perspective of ASPR to Euro Pub Health Consortium. Olivier, I have a question to you. What are the major lessons resulting from a decade and a half of Europub Health existence, of international teaching, of very diversified, very international groups of students? Could you say something about the cross-cultural, international environment of public health, Europub Health program? What are the benefits for students, for university staff resulting from this environment? Maybe some challenges, obstacles, also which you see with regard to that. Olivier?
Yeah, thank you very much, Thomas. Thank you for inviting me to this celebration. I congratulate you on your achievement, and it's very nice to be able to speak in this conference with invited by a long-standing partner of the European Consortium, and which is coordinated by the school I am in, the High School of Public Health in France, based in Rennes. Just two words about EPH. I think most of you will know it, but some might not. It's Europub Health is a program supported by the Erasmus Mundus program of the European Commission. That's very important to state because it's allowed us to have this successful story, I think. It started with 5 universities. Now we are 8 universities, a consortium of 8 European universities involved in delivering a 2-year program, 1 year spent in a country and the second year in another country. And we attract students. We have attracted more than 400 students now since the beginning, coming from all over the world and challenging us actually about our teaching method and the things that we usually do within our own national boundaries. There's 2 things I want to say. Maybe the first thing from my perspective at the School of Public Health in France, I mean, being engaged and coordinating this program with all the partners and consortium has been really a strong evolution. I would probably go as far as a revolution in the way that we see international teaching and how we embrace that. The school where I work was a school of public health administration, training mainly French professionals to work in the public health agencies of France. And this is all right, and it's done that quite well for a long time. But really, we changed the dimension when we started new programs. And yes, the students from the school used to go in internship abroad for a short time and so forth, mainly probably with the usual partner, French-speaking countries abroad. But that was really kind of not the whole picture that we could really, the whole benefits we could bring from international collaboration. With Europub Health, we really changed scales, and thanks to our partners, we really opened our mind to new methods, to new public, to new ways of looking at public health problems, which are not, set in a boundary. They are public health problems. We've seen that pandemics are global, and as Laura mentioned as well, many other problems are global, and we have to tackle them in collaboration. So, with bringing this program, actually has enabled us to attract I'm not saying that for Tara and Celia, who are your panelists, but we have attracted very bright, very passionate students, and that actually forced us to move forward as well, to think out of the box. And I think both of them, the students and the institutions of the consortiums, had to change their perception of what is possible and impossible, and the limits that what we think within our own boundaries. We can do that. That's a way to think this problem of migrant health or that of addiction or any other public health problem. When you talk to other people and from all over the world, coming with their experience, their culture, that actually bring a whole new set of vision of the problems and of solutions that can be applied to solve them. So that's a very, very, very important benefit, I think, of international collaboration. And we should do more of that. And we're trying to do more of that as well within the school. The one thing as well I would like to say to conclude, Thomas, is that I've been impressed personally by the kind of the bonds which is linking the students together. I mean, Tara and Celia will probably tell me better what I'm trying to say here. But the alumni association, the bonding between the students coming from all over the world together and sharing their very formative or transformative, I think, experience as a European program is impressive. And it's a community which goes beyond the studying time. It goes now in their professional life, and a lot of them, up to 30% of the students on a PhD end up in doing further studies in a PhD program. Some work in international comparison, some go back, of course, in their country, but they are still strongly linked together. And of course, I think they are very good material for talking together, making a step to come to Europe, from Asia, from America, from Africa, from all over the world, spending 2 years. It's actually quite a challenging program, and we select, I think, a very high caliber and very motivated students. But I think hopefully we transform them into a community of international professionals which have learned through PBL, problem-based learning, thanks to our colleagues, and other method as well, pedagogical method. But I think I hope they are transformed. I think they are, from what I see, and certainly they have transformed us as well as institutions. And I think that's an important lesson to keep in mind. Sorry if I've been a bit long, Thomas, but that's what I have to say, maybe for a start.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Olivier. Thank you for your description of Europe Hub Health program, which is also, in my opinion, a great program, a great learning and teaching experience, both for students and the staff. In the meantime, we received a first question from Professor Łukasz Balwicki. Greetings from Public School of Health at Medical University of Gdańsk. And we also got a question from Łukasz, which you panelists please take a note on that, and maybe in your parts you will address this question. So the question of Łukasz is, what teaching techniques should we implement to prepare students to such job tasks like critical strategic analysis? That was a top task in Dr. Magania presentation. Now I will move to Kasia Czabanowska. I know, Kasia, that in recent years you've been researching, studying the issue of competencies of public health graduates, and you are, so what is the competencies framework, its applications, current potential uses, Kasia?
Thank you very much, Tomasz. But before I start, I would like to applaud the presentation of Laura, which really shed the light of our further conversation. And she mentioned things that are important. And this is the competencies for public health graduates, data collection that we are still missing about the graduates, about employment, emerging new skills and new jobs, and the fact that actually public health graduates are not employed by many public health organizations. And I think that it is related also to Europe, because we don't collect this data and don't have the studies. So competencies seem to be extremely important. And competencies, this is knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And Laura mentioned that we need to move from knowledge to performance, to skills and attitudes. Some of the researchers of competences say that the competence is knowing, doing, and being. So actually, that is a very complex term. And very often we concentrate only on one part of it. And why competencies? Why competency frameworks? So there are many competency frameworks worldwide, and there are the competencies in New Zealand, in Canada, in America, in UK, knowledge skills competency framework, ASFER competency frameworks, and many others. Why they are developed? To delineate the discipline and to delineate the practice, to provide a framework for accreditation and for professional credentialing and licensing, or to support educational programs, or to support self-assessment and personal development, or to help the organizations in recruitment or in the assessment of the services they provide. So there are a lot of uses for competency frameworks. Another interesting fact is how the competency frameworks are organized. And very often, in more traditional way, academics or professionals like to organize the frameworks based on disciplines. So epidemiology, biostatistics, social sciences, etc. But this is not the way to go, because as you see, we need a blend of competencies. We work across disciplines. And we need areas. So for instance, there are additional parts in competency frameworks like communication or leadership and system thinking. And there are frameworks which go really very interdisciplinary and divide the frameworks into 3 specific areas, grouping the disciplinary competencies, and then interpersonal competencies, and competencies which relate to personal drive and motivation. The famous OECD framework shows it in this way. And now my experiences with working on the frameworks, I have to mention with great pleasure that the Institute of Public Health pioneered in the development of competency frameworks. It was already in 2000 when we tried to find out what is the field, who employs public health graduates, and what competencies are expected. And here again, the link to Laura, who said that public health employers like those soft skills. And we were puzzled at that time to find out that they say, oh, we need someone who can communicate, someone who can deliver tasks without supervision within limited time frame. And then we thought, what they are saying, but that's true. They trust our academic programs and they believe it is a graduate, then they have specific competencies. And then other competencies, WHO ASPER competency framework, which was developed in collaboration with WHO and ASPER colleagues. And this competency framework took the approach of interdisciplinarity, and it's available on the webpage. Currently, a very interesting project led by ASPER and Professor Mary Codd, the European competency framework for field epidemiology in infectious disease. It is a big concerted action, and I hope that colleagues will be able to evaluate this framework. And then there are many others that I am working on, also related to leadership. And maybe here I will finish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kasia. Quite many very interesting points. For me, one of 2 important conclusions are that ASPPH is really doing a great job in terms of marketing public health education and researching the market of educational services in the area of academic public health. And the second is that we need more precise data on Europe, on Poland. So yes, it's very important. And Kasia, a very short, brief question before we move to next parts of our discussion. I know that you are keen on transformational leadership. So what is a transformational leadership? And do you think that it can be considered as one of important contemporary public health competencies?
Yes, I think that it is a very good question. And actually, we need leaders who can transform systems, who have a specific mindset and are able to work in a context, who are system thinkers, and who can co-create the value-based innovative solutions. So these are people who can adapt in a very flexible way to different ecosystems in which they operate and achieve shared goals. These are people who can inspire others to achieve common goal and empower others. So actually the transformational leaders can bring somebody from the situation in which they are now to the better future based on common value set. They are able to act, and what is quite important, they are able to challenge power relations that interplay in internally and externally. They need to be able to challenge, and they have a specific mindset. And I believe that we need to train transformational leaders. And currently I'm working with my PhD student from Switzerland on the development of transformational leadership competency framework for low and middle income countries. And that is when we talk about the frameworks, it's also important to talk about the methodologies that they are developed. And I think that it should translate into educational programs. And what Dr. Balwicki has pointed out, we need very student-centered approaches where they can solve the problems using problem-based, identify these problems, use transformational models of change. To give an example, a simple model of Kotter is fine. And put hands-on practice. Don't be afraid to give them the possibility to find solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kasia. Thank you very much. So let's stay in this thread of discussion related to leadership. I have a question to Aldona. Aldona, do you think that the empathy should be the element of leadership in healthcare?
Yes, of course. I think that empathy, leadership, healthcare, it's a very difficult combination in healthcare. Mainly because the patient expects everything and the service provider can only meet his expectation up to the certain economic level. And what it means. And at this point, there is a dilemma of whether to emphasize with the patient's drama or to keep in mind the potential drama of an organization what by offering too much to the patient will not be able to financially balance its operation. There is another aspect of empathy in a leadership in healthcare delivery organization. It is the ability of harmonize the work, teamwork especially. Nowadays, teamwork, collaboration, and interdependence are necessary, and this means that it is very important to have a good leadership. However, considering the healthcare sector, we are not talking about any leader. People employed in healthcare providers expect those who manage them to represent not only economic skills, but at the same time, their behavior will have the character of empathetic leadership resulting from the ability to connect the expectation of medical professionals, people from administration services, and clients. The leader must establish a clear vision of goals to be achieved. He or she must also motivate team members to work toward this common goal, as well as resolve internal conflicts between different members of a given group. For this, empathy is needed above all. Empathy started to be a really very important skills for leadership in healthcare.
Thank you very much, Aldona. For many years, you've been researching issues related to management within healthcare sector. I will pose maybe a bit provocative question. Do you think that in general, any public health related competencies are really required, necessary in managing healthcare at all?
Yes, of course they do, especially now under the COVID pandemic. This sort of skills are extremely necessary and useful. The literature says that the person who wants to become an empathic leader should develop 5 main skills: empathy, enthusiasm, warmth, calmness, and the ability to set the boundaries. All of these skills are taught in the program provided for the public health students. So they have the foundation, but to hone both empathy and leadership in themselves. This means that both the curriculum and the professors are strongly geared toward teaching the knowledge, skills, and competences necessary for managing healthcare providers. The public health perspective allows you to look at health problems in a broad social, economic, and cultural context. This is important for the ultimate goal to the health sector, which is expressed in the difficult equilibrium, satisfaction of patient and financial stable of system.
Thank you, Aldona. So I think that one of the messages is that educational background of healthcare managers is important. And I think
important because they gave to students possibility to be both sides, on the human side and on the economic side. Yeah. And
yes, and I think this is again a good message for students and candidates for study directions like public health, healthcare management, that these competencies are really important in managing contemporary healthcare. Thank you very much, Aldona. Now let's move back across Atlantic to Laura. We know already that the history of humankind has not yet ended yet, and there are many ongoing geopolitical changes, geopolitical challenges. Do you think that the ongoing geopolitical changes could influence the global collaboration in the area of academic public health, collaboration across the Atlantic between the USA and the European countries? Laura?
Thank you, Tomas, for the question, and definitely is our hope. I think that public health is the same as all the other health professionals. We really traditionally work in silos, and we work in silos in our own professions and across the globe, because we are just very into like our country and our profession, and we really need to break those silos. And there has been people and organizations for many years that we're trying to break those silos, and that we're trying to break those barriers, because I think it's not fair that we are all doing great job, but everybody's in its own silo. I want to just to share, for example, in these last 18 months here in the United States, just confronting COVID has been really sad to see, like, so many organizations, all with the best, ability and resources, and thinking about what to do and how can we do better, but there's no coordination at all, nationally or globally, in order to really face the pandemic. And we're seeing the results. So I think that since many years, and I applaud that Europe has been one of the first ones, and I think maybe just exactly because the geopolitical situation in Europe, they know the importance of collaboration between the countries. I have been working with Europe since actually my former job, when I was the dean of the public health school in Mexico, more than maybe like around 15 years ago, when I really met all the people or my colleagues from ASFER, and we worked together since then. And Tropea is also a great example of this collaboration. And so we are really trying to work with others. And that's why exactly a year ago, we founded together with ASFER and the other regional associations, this alliance, because we know that we need the collaboration. We need to work together. We are all doing or pursuing the same agenda, but we're not going to go anywhere if we're doing, and isolated our efforts. I think that the best way is just to bring together the collaboration between the schools and programs around the world in order to try to move forward. For example, all these very important issues that my colleagues, John, Cassia, Aldona has talked about. I mean, all these, we're talking about the human competencies. One of the human competencies, work collaboratively around the globe, because that's exactly the kind of skills and competencies we all need in order to really transform our world. So I'm hoping really that we are really advancing in our collaborative approach to solving our biggest challenge, and in academia is one of the ones that we really need to work together to not continue working in silos.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Laura. So let's hope that internationalization of public health education and also cross-Atlantic collaboration in the area of academic public health will develop, will not collapse or not shrink. In the meantime, we received a question from Bytom, and the congratulations to our conference, and also a question about occupational health. And so let's keep this in mind. Should it have a place in the curriculum of public health? We've noticed that occupational health and safety in many countries is connected with public health. In Poland, the specialty is rather associated with polytechnics. So the question about environmental, occupational health. But before that, Laura, I have yet another question to you. How useful do you think teaching programs in the area of public health are suitable for the contemporary job market? How actually the job market verifies the competencies, skills of public health graduates? From your presentation, it is clear, it looks that there is a need for public health graduates. And in fact, the number of public health graduates among the workforce is very low. But how actually does the job market verify? What skills are the mostly appreciated among potential employers?
Well, I think that the research is there. I think that we know now with data, some of the data I show in my presentation, we do actually have more data in terms of what is needed there. And there are several organizations here that actually do this like every 4 or 5 years. CIF is one of them. CIF is the accreditation office and agency. They do search the market in terms of what's going on in order to really pass to the schools and programs with, the needed competencies. But that's just one resource. There are researchers doing this, and there are other organizations that also, like, for example, the CPH, which is a credentialing, they also do a study every 5 years about the job analysis. But having said that, and there's a lot of researchers that are doing that right now, but what the data is showing, and I hope I did my point, that we need to transform our curriculums, because our curriculums right now, as we speak, are still very traditional ones, as are still very heavy in content, in like knowledge-based, which I think that we all know that, the knowledge, it changes, constantly. So the point is that why are we teaching all this knowledge that, first of all, you can find this knowledge even in the internet, right? Or they are changing all the time. What we need to really move our curriculums is to the more of the human, the social, the so-called, I hate that term, but the so-called soft competencies is really the real competencies, the professional competencies. We already, all my colleagues have touched on those, like the empathy and leadership and communication, team building. Those are the skills, those are the competencies that should really be emphasized heavily in our curriculum. So we need to transform. It's very hard, the transformation. We're trying to do it. I cannot say that we are already, have done it, not at all, because our schools are very traditional. Our faculty is very difficult to change, that they need to stop lecturing bio and epi. And of course, we know those content. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that we need just to find different ways to engage our students in developing the competencies that they really need. And the competencies that they need in the market, it's more transformative leadership, as Kasia was saying, it's more like empathy, as Aldona was emphasizing, as more collaboration. And where do we teach those competencies? They are not existent in our curriculum. So we need to map now our curriculums, and how do we change our curriculums to really emphasize these competencies? These are the needed competencies. So regardless, if we really train our students in these competencies, when they go out, doesn't matter what work they have, doesn't matter that they're going to change 11 times their works, doesn't matter that the works that they're going to find that are not even existing right now. But if you have, your social, emotional, and basic technical competencies in place, you'll be fine, because you're going to be a transformative leader no matter what. So I think that that's now the current challenge. How do we move to action in our transformation of our curriculums for these and the future challenges?
Thank you, Laura. So transformation of curricula, and as I understand, being in touch with the job market, with employers, and being responsive to the needs, knowing these needs, and keeping the curricula close to real demands, yes, on the job market.
And I'm sorry, can you just add that, yes, in general, now in the specific, maybe because that was your question in terms of what are the new like technical competencies that they are asking, definitely is in data and technology. Definitely the employers right now is like, we need the graduates to really generate the data, use the data, and use the data for decision making, and use technology in order to really, and innovate technology in order to use it for you know, to approach the public health challenges. So those are in terms of the technical skills that they are requiring more, the use of big data, for example.
Yes, the job market issues will be, in fact, the theme of the next session, but these are really very important points. In the meantime, Kasia, I've seen that you raised your hand. Would you like to give a brief comment?
Yes, I would like to make a comment and also answer the question that was in the chat concerning occupational health and whether it should be included in public health curricula. And I just want to mention that while we were developing the WHO ASPER Public Health Competency Framework, we wanted to group the competencies according to disciplines, and this is context and content and context, and there we have all public health areas. One of the areas that was identified in the literature and also through Delphi reviews and studies was public health and security. And within public health and security competencies, which again, it's an interdisciplinary approach, was the competency or several competencies related to occupational health as well. So apart from One Health, etc., there are competencies there. And now when we look at the competency framework and public health students or professionals, from the students, we expect that when they finish master programs, they should be more or less competent or educated in all of these competences, so they should know what they are. But development of competencies later has the T-shape. So they have this general knowledge, but then they can go more in depth. And then we can support, because there are different educational programs, and there may be a program which develops occupational health competences in more depth. And an illustration is also that there are a lot of public health circles where people specifically want to develop competency frameworks which are related to health promotion, to hospital administration, or One Health, and they concentrate on these specific ones. So why not occupational health? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kasia. So it looks like probably we could have yet another webinar on occupational health vis-a-vis public health. Maybe it's a good idea for the future. We are talking about geopolitical changes, challenges. Now I have a question to John. What is your opinion, John, about Brexit, geopolitical changes, pandemic, influencing teaching and learning among ASPER region organizations? Do you think that such problems also have impact in Europe or Euro-Asian region of ASPER activities? And maybe also keeping with international issues, you have also experienced, particular experience related to the United Kingdom. So what are major challenges, specific experiences of the academic public health in the United Kingdom? John?
Thank you, Tomasz. Can I just add a word about occupational health as well? Occupational health is one of the venues in which public health can be done, in which health can be improved, like schools, like the community, like the environment generally. And it's absolutely essential that it's part of public health knowledge and connections, partnerships. And in fact, in ASFA's work in the pandemic, the piece that we did on meat plants and the risks of COVID is the most cited piece of work that we've done. So just as an example, the issues of Brexit are a major disaster for public health, certainly in the UK, but also with far-reaching implications across Europe as well. And some for the better in some parts of Europe, with the exodus of the pharmaceutical industry to Holland, the loss of UK's loss in transport drivers is the Europeans, the rest of Europe's gain. But in the world of public health, I think there was some reason why I, as a UK public health person, became president of ASFA. I think colleagues in European schools wanted to keep connections with the UK, and I think that's been very positive. And but I've witnessed recently, in the context of working on the advisory forum of ECDC, that there is no serious UK intelligence getting into that forum, and you know, we need shared information, shared knowledge, and to share practice. Health problems are not confined to any one country. Even with the pandemic of non-communicable disease, these are problems caused by multinational companies inflicting ill health on the populations of all our countries. So, and when you think climate change, migration, the gross inequalities in health due to economic inequality, you know, these require international solutions, and you know, the UK has withdrawn itself from that opportunity. The other thing for the UK is that things that are problems of Brexit, like transport, like logistics, like getting food supplies into shops, getting fuel to petrol stations, these are not problems of COVID, they are problems of Brexit, and they're only just beginning to emerge because, you know, the UK hasn't implemented the European UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement. Goods are still coming in from the continent, but they're not going out from the UK. So, you know, my country is in a mess. It's going to get worse, and you know, we value our public health cooperations with Polish colleagues and in the rest of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. So let's hope that the collaboration in Europe, among countries in Europe, will stay despite any various problems, and the Europe will stay united. Politicians and societies will be able to reach consensus on various issues. We know from the history that not united Europe meant really bad things. So let's hope for good about that. Let's move to France. Olivier, you've been talking about Europe health experiences. Could you say something about specific experiences related to contemporary teaching public health in France? in Rennes, maybe other schools of public health in France, challenges, problems, opportunities. Olivier?
Yeah, well, thanks, Thomas. And I'm echoing a little the earlier discussion between Laura and Kasia about competencies-based learning and the need to evolve, to make our curricula evolving in order to achieve that. I was thinking what we are trying to do in some part of France, certainly at the school in Rennes, is to try and integrate the teaching at master's level with the employers, having more integrated learning and internship, not learning for 6 months and then teaching for 3 months and so forth. Where you end up spending your time in your host institution doing some kind of dissertation on a research question often. And but another way of doing that is maybe more from like a vocational kind of teaching model, really, would be to start with your employer in September, beginning of the fall, and have your learning alternately every week, 1 week in a month, something like that, and to make sure there is more integration between the professional worlds of public health and the learning that you have to do in order, and the better understanding of the competencies you have to acquire from the students, and vice versa. And it goes another way. And that's one way. I don't know what Kasia and Laura will talk about that and how it is done in other countries, but I think that could be an avenue that could be pursued to really much more deliver on competency-based learning. But another question that I'd like to raise, Thomas, is with the insight of the pandemic and the management of it in France. One question was raised here, and which was how much decision maker at the highest level, which, as Laura pointed, I think is the same in France, and most of them are not trained in public health, although they have high responsibilities and competencies in public health. Well, how much they are able to really collaborate with scientifics, experts and so forth, and that has been a big question. We know that in other countries, people who come from a scientific background can access a high responsibility post in management and in government and so forth. This is not a culture in France, and even at the school where I work with, I must confess, some of the higher administration managers that we train, I think we are not doing enough to make them sensible and receptive to what can science bring them to in their decision-making process. And I think that's a challenge we have to tackle. It might be maybe more by training higher competent public health professionals together with the scientific dimension. It might also be spreading more, maybe at the bachelor level, spreading more the concepts and the values of public health in a wider community of citizens, which might not end up in a public health work, but will be more receptive during the career of what public health is, and has an implication in their work as well.
Thank you very much, Olivier. Looking at my watch, I can see that we are approaching the end of our session, unfortunately, and I would like to tackle and discuss with you so many issues. Probably we should really organize the next webinar one day. So maybe the last really short question to Kasia. I could not finish without this question. Please answer it, if you can, very, very briefly. Because you have very special experience of working in Poland and abroad. Many years in Poland, Krakowie, Jagiellonia, Institute of Public Health, and now Maastricht University, the Netherlands. So would you very briefly, concisely tell about the major experiences of differences of teaching within international environment, particularly with these differences, 2 countries, your experience in 2 countries. Kasia?
Thank you very much, Tomek. I was thinking about this question, so I must say there are 3 elements to this answer. First is the context, meaning the system in which you work. Then there is perspective, and the third is the student. So I have this great experience of working in two different contexts. There are contexts which are maybe more traditional, and that reflects also in the way the hours that we work are calculated in the system, where, for instance, in Poland, you work frontal with the students, and then you get hours which are calculated on the time you spend in the classroom. On the contrary, in the system, which is, for instance, in Maastricht, you don't spend much time in the frontal teaching, but you organize the teaching of the students who study on their own, who have to develop the skills and find solutions, because all education is problem-based learning. And then you get hours for organization, tutoring, etc., which is a lot. Yes, and then the student in the Netherlands is in the center of the system. So the university provides a lot of tools, a lot of spaces, a lot of materials where the students can go in small groups and study. Whereas here we still guide the student more by the hand. So an example, when I came to the Netherlands and made my first lecture, I prepared everything I knew. That was a beautiful lecture. And then one student made a comment, Kasia, it was great, but you have left no space for curiosity.
Excellent conclusion, Kasia. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I think we should, I like it very much, and I think we should really somehow transform, develop the educational system and the way we approach to teaching, and really move into 21st century. So I think it's ahead of us. Let's hope so. So thank you so much for this great discussion. Now the floor is for Celia and Tara, our alumni, young health care professionals, public health professionals. The floor is yours. Please give comments, conclude this session. Either Tara or Celia, it's up to you who wants to start first.
Maybe Tara.
Sorry, yeah, so thank you so much, Dziękuję. I'm so excited to be part of this such an important discussion, especially as a student who, you know, went to school during the Brexit period and graduated right before the pandemic hit. A lot of what we saw and being part of the public health workforce, it's such an important time. You know, from my own experience, I resonate with a lot of what has been said, and I am very thankful for the education that the Europub Health did provide me, because it challenged and provided an international setting to be able to discuss. There was something that Olivier said, where we working together with an international cohort, when you talk to other people and their experiences and culture, it brings a whole new set of vision and perspective. And I think that's so true. And that's all about, you know, what we're seeing with what everyone is mentioning with these human-centric competencies that we need for collaboration, communication. And, you know, these are so vital for us right now as public health graduates and young professionals in the public health field. Something that also, what Laura said, that really stood out to me, because, you know, I am kind of in the early career stage where I'm transferring to different jobs. We are seeing a major shift towards traditional, you know, sectors. We're going outside of the sectors of public health. And, you know, I do also want to emphasize that we need more research in this area to align with what John also mentioned, is the professionalization of public health. You know, it's very difficult, I think, for early graduates to figure out, because there's so many, everyone keeps talking about these different competencies and skills, and there's so many options for public health, but that makes it really difficult for us to pinpoint exactly what we're doing with our career pathway. And I think what you guys are bringing to the discussion, it's so important. And I'm really thankful for this opportunity to be here today. Celia, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, well, I graduated from the European Public Health Program in 2018. I spent the first year in Granada, Spain, and then the second year in Krakow, Poland. And to me, it's been a really great experience, since it not only allows you to choose between 2 European public health institutions, but it allows you also to specialize, to pick your own pathway. And besides, I mean, it really delivers you a great package of public health skills like health promotion, health economics, and epidemiology. And in my opinion, also soft skills. And what I found especially very enriching is that you have many students from not only very different countries, but also from lots of different backgrounds and professions. And that's, to me, what created really great discussions. Basically, because of the different backgrounds, you didn't have only medical, like doctors or nurses, but you have economists also from health sciences too. So this actually builds a great base to have very enriching discussions.
And I also like to drive a message that Laura mentioned. Public health workforce, we're in a crisis. We're seeing the burnout, we're seeing different changes in our workforce. And it's really important for us to, take part and be at the forefront of these important social issues such as racism, planetary health. I think this is what we're going to be shifting towards. And I think this summarizes very well of what this public health workforce is changing to and this session is all about.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tara and Celia, for your insightful comments. They are very important for us, and I also think that for the students, for the current students, and I also hope that your professional careers are inspiration for our current students. So it was great to have you during this comment. And I think with that we will conclude our session. But before that, please show the last slide. But before that, I mentioned that about John's Another Life. And yesterday I went to social media. And John, I became your new subscriber. I found something on YouTube channel, which I want to share with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, now let's play Jude from Dr. Harp's Medicine Band. And with that music, let's move smoothly to the next session after our short break. Thank you very much.